State senators expected to take up the recently passed abortion bill on Tuesday. The House signed off on that measure last night, which bans most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey says with the recent passage of pro-life legislation in North Carolina, South Carolina is now the abortion capital of the Southeast, where abortion is legal without restrictions through 5 months of pregnancy. He continued by saying the pro-life members of the Senate believe this is unacceptable, adding he's looking forward to returning next week to continue the fight for life in the state of South Carolina. Meanwhile, Planned Parenthood South Atlantic issued a statement saying in part that anti-abortion lawmakers in the House want to force people, including children, to give birth in the state and make abortion impossible to access. They go on to say that they're urging the Senate to reject the recently passed measure. Tonight, our Andrea Mott gives us a closer look at exactly what is in that abortion bill.
It was a very late night after 2 lengthy days of debate and hundreds of amendments. House members did pass the 6-week abortion ban late last night. State senators are now scheduled to take up the bill on Tuesday. So here's a closer look at what is in this abortion bill that again has now passed through the House. Well, it's Senate Bill 474, and it would ban abortions after an ultrasound detects cardiac activity. Now, that normally happens at about 6 weeks, but that is before many women know that they are even pregnant. All right, another factor in this bill, anybody who performs an abortion after this period would face a felony charge with a possible fine of $10,000 and up to 2 years in prison. And women who receive an abortion would not be held criminally liable. So again, the onus falls on the doctor. All right, something else in this bill. There are exceptions to save the life of the mom. Pregnancies that are the result of rape or incest are also exempt from the ban, but only up until 12 weeks. Now, in those circumstances, a doctor would be required to notify the local sheriff of the allegation of rape or incest. So that's another factor of this bill. All right, something else. Additions to the bill from the House include mandated child support that is backdated to conception. Another requirement would require a judge to sign off on any minor's request for an abortion. Now, something else that we wanted to talk about, because this has been mentioned a lot. House Republicans say they were pushing this bill through so quickly because they didn't want South Carolina to become, quote, an abortion destination state in the Southeast. So what exactly does abortion restrictions look like with all of our neighboring states? We're going to take a deep dive for you tonight to look at all of this. Now, our neighbors to the west in Georgia. In Georgia, abortion is banned around 6 weeks of pregnancy again. Exceptions are made in this state, but they're very limited, and they include to save the mom's life and if the fetus won't survive, and cases of rape or incest. All right, let's look at North Carolina now. You have heard about this in the news quite a bit. They've been making headlines because lawmakers passed a 12-week abortion ban, but then the Democratic governor, Roy Cooper, vetoed that bill. However, in the end, they had the votes to override his veto. That's exactly what they did. This bill now goes into effect on July 1st, and it includes new licensing requirements for the abortion clinics, and it also increases doctor visits that the woman has to go to before she can get the abortion pill. All right, now let's turn our attention to Alabama. Alabama has some of the most restrictive laws in the entire country. Since June of last year, doctors in Alabama can only perform an abortion to save the mom's life. And finally, what has been happening down in Florida? Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a 6-week abortion ban into law with exceptions, but that law is currently on hold as the Florida Supreme Court is hearing a challenge to the state's 15-week abortion ban.
All right, Andrea, thank you. Now, some states have left the issue up to voters. 2 months after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, Kansas voted to uphold the right to abortion by not banning it in the state's constitution. Last November, residents in Kentucky and Montana voted to not allow abortion bans in their constitution, while Michigan, Vermont, California, they all approved keeping abortion rights in their state's constitution.